If you go around people that have a certain mentality, you'll realize that they all have the same mentality, even if they come from a different ethnicity. You heard that? If you take a white man who is successful, and you take a black man that is successful, you take an Asian man that is successful, let's even go further. You take a white Caucasian woman, you take a black woman, you take a Asian woman, and you sit them in a room and they don't know each other, and all of them are successful, you'll realize that they all speak the same language. They speak the same language. Even if they have a different native tongue. Even if they have a different native tongue, you'll realize that they all speak the same language. 1 is, I'm a sacrifice. 2 is, I'm gonna invest. 3 is, I'm responsible with my money. 4 is, I'm financially responsible. 5 is, I'm financially literate. 6 is, they're disciplined. This is the language of the successful. It's not a color. Last time I checked, money is green. And anybody can get themselves to that position of having it if they're willing to do what it takes.
Welcome to the Don't Let That Go Over Your Head podcast, starring Q the Boss.
Yo, 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 yo! Welcome back to another episode of Don't Let That Go Over Your Head podcast. They call me Q the Boss. Today's episode is I Claim Victory. Before I get into this, I want y'all to believe. If you claim victory, tap that screen, let's get it. Sometimes you gotta realize you just won't quit. It's the quitting that make us not realize that we have to constantly keep going. When most won't pursue, you have to chase it. See, that you don't realize that if your work don't surpass the potential, then your potential will remain a dream. And the fact of the matter is most people don't want to chase their dreams. It's the aspirations and the goals that we like to chase. You want more, but you're not willing to do more. See, it's the victory that we want, but we don't want to make the sacrifices to get there. When you don't make the sacrifices, nothing comes full circle. But you want more. As a false reality. See, the conclusion of one's life is what you've created. When you're young, you look like your parents, but as you get older, you start looking like your life decisions. And most don't understand you look like your life's decisions based on a poor performance. The victory is what comes when you're resilient. It would come when you sacrifices. It would comes when you're constantly chasing your dream. It's the victory that we want, but we scared to pursue. And by not pursuing, one will never become great. See, most of us stand in front of ourselves and block ourselves from getting to the next level. It takes a consistent person who's willing to sacrifice. If one won't sacrifice, one will never ever become great. It's you that gotta change your life. It's you who gotta do more. It's you who gotta be willing to look in the mirror and tell yourself, in order to be great, I gotta make the changes. It's you, it's not the world. But we want the world to feel our pain. Rather than complain, won't you make the world feel your pain? By chasing your better self and going after your goals. See, the goal will remain a goal unless you make your action surpass your goals. Chase your better being. Go after your dreams and sacrifice for the next steps. It's you. It's you. It's you. It's you. A lot of us say that we want victory, but we're not claiming victory. We're not allowing ourselves to become the best version of ourselves by putting the best version of ourselves around ourselves. You have to be influenced. You have to be inspired. A lot of times people don't understand your people, places, and things are what inspire you. When you're around people that aren't doing much, you tend to not do a lot. When you're around people that aren't consistent, you tend to not be consistent. And the sad part is you can force feed your mind to believe that you're doing a lot better than you're actually doing by staying around people who aren't doing a lot. I claim victory. I claim victory over everything. When you're going through something, you have to still claim victory and accept that challenge. Because the challenge is what you're going through for the moment that's going to enable and allow you to go to the next chapters and the next levels. A lot of people don't understand when you're suffering and you're going through the worst trials and tribulations, that means because you're leveling up. Anytime you come out of your comfort, you're going to always become uncomfortable again. That's why most people stay in their comfort. Let me say that again. Anytime you're leveling up, it comes with a level of uncomfortableness. Because what's happening is you're leveling up. The people that say that they're comfortable, that means they're stuck at a stagnated position and they don't grow. It's like going to the gym but still eating bad. You're not gaining weight, but you're not looking better. You're consistently looking the same. And that's what that is. And a lot of people accept that, right? But when you're going through your worst times, is when you have to identify that this is the best time. Because you're choosing to go through these rough times that's gonna allow you to grow. I'm gonna give y'all a story. So, and this just happened. I get a phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm laying in the bed. So one of my guys called me and said, yo, this barbershop, for those who don't understand, I have a few businesses, but this particular business is like my first child. It started me. It made me me. It taught me how to be a man. It taught me how to be responsible. It taught me maturity. I learned how to be a father in my barbershop. I learned how to be a great man in my barbershop because I saw different men and different people who had different aspects of life, and I just implemented things that worked for me. Like if a person was consistent, I learned their consistency. When a person was responsible, I learned how they were responsible. When a person was a great father, I learned how they were a great father. And all I did was add season to my own recipe, which made me. All I did was take seasoning from different people's recipes, and I made my ultimate recipe, which is myself. I learned. So anyway, I woke up today, and I get a phone call, and I rush over to my barbershop. The whole building is on fire. And a part of me was like so sad because it was like seeing your baby hurting and you couldn't do anything to stop it. But in the same breath, it bred a new life in me. It sparked a new fire. That fire started a new fire in me. I looked at that fire and I said, a part of me was depressed, a part of me was sad. But I looked at that fire and I said, if I didn't have this fire happen to my barbershop, it would have never inspired me to do anything different in the barbershop. My barbershop has been the same since I was about 23 years old. I've owned it. And I've never did anything other than what it looks like. But I said to myself, you can look at this moment as a moment of failure, or you can look at this moment as a moment of victory. Because when you're going through your hardest times is when you're going to elevate, is when you're going to grow. Because at times, I don't never ask somebody, can you fight? When a person tell me they can fight, I ask them who they fought. Because it's not about if you can fight, it's about who you fought. Because anyone can say they can fight, but in reality, who did you fight? Did you fight people that are willing to fight you back? Are you fighting against people that's really challenging you? Because I'm gonna tell you something, in your toughest moments, you'll realize that you'll become your toughest person or your toughest version of yourself. Let me say that again. In your toughest moments, you'll realize you'll become your toughest version of self because you can't say what you can't do until you're put into a situation that makes you, show you who you truly are. And I realized at this moment, I claim victory. I claim victory. I said no more, a part of me was a little depressed today. I was a little down. Because again, it's like having a child and just imagine your child fall and get hurt. And you felt like you couldn't defend them, right? It bothered me. But in the same breath, it woke up a fire in me. I'm coming to take back everything that belongs to me. And for those, and the sad part is you get some people who inquiring because they're hating. They're inquiring because they want to see me down. They're inquiring because they want to see me fail. But I'm going to tell you something. What God has given, no man can take. What God has given, no woman can take. What's for you is for you. And I realize victory is for me. Because I'm a battle and I'm a fight to the end with all the breath that's in my body. No one's going to stop me, no matter what. The only person I feel can stop me is myself. I realize that my worst enemy is myself, and my biggest critic is myself, but my biggest fan has to be myself. The other day I was telling a young man, cocky, conceited, confident, and arrogant, all are on the same fence. It all depends on what level of confidence you at. If Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan have a conversation and they're arguing about sports, and Kobe said he's better than Jordan, and Jordan said he's better than Kobe, Kobe won't look at Jordan as arrogant. Jordan won't look at Kobe as arrogant. You know what they're gonna look at each other as? Confident. When you realize that a lot of people, when they're not inspired, they always look at people that are confident as a level of arrogance, right? And I realize that I'm a very confident person, so sometimes people mistake my confidence as arrogance because they haven't reached my level of confidence. If you're a chef and you say you're the best, why not? If you say you're a producer and you say you're the best, why not? If you say you're an artist and you say you're the best, why not? Anything you say you do and you don't think you're the best at it, that means you shouldn't really be doing it. Because if it's meant for you, you should always feel like it's meant for you. And again, somebody might be better at painting abstract, but at the end of the day, you're good at what you are. And your art is you because it's a representation of you. That's the difference about art. Creativity is about creating what's in you, what you see. Everyone has a blank canvas, and when you start painting on this canvas, you're presenting to the canvas what you see in your mind. That picture that you see is what you see. Again, a lot of times we don't bring the pictures that's in our mind onto a canvas and present it to ourselves for our future self. A lot of times we neglect ourselves, not seeing that lifestyle that we see in our mind is what we need to get and put it on the canvas and make it and execute it. But a lot of times we neglect ourselves. We're going to settle for less because you're not claiming victory. Even in a loss, you still claim victory because it's a lesson. Even in a loss, you claim victory because it's a lesson. I've traded my L's, where people say loser or losses, for lessons. I traded my lessons for learning. When you learn how to learn, that's when you become great. Sometimes we're not inspired because we're not in rooms that are inspiring us. It's like being a high school player but playing against people in a lower grade and you think you're actually good because you haven't advanced the talent pool. A senior on JV, right? Because you haven't advanced your talent pool. You may be very talented, but you have to advance yourself into the talent pool to challenge yourself to see how great you truly are. And this crazy part about it is, even if you lose, let's say you run against the fastest kid in your school and you lose by a second, you really get to see that if you work hard, you can catch him. That's the crazy part about when you challenge yourself. When you challenge yourself, you'll see that this person ain't as tough as I thought they was. I remember the first time I had a fight with somebody that I thought could beat me. I remember vividly, it was like elementary school. And I was a little fearful of this person because in my mind, they already beat me. Because vocally, he out-talks everybody. So in my mind, I was like, this guy could beat me because of the way he talked. So he beat me verbally, but he never beat me physically. And then one day we got into an argument. I already gave him the victory without even giving him a chance, or giving myself a chance. I gave him the victory by saying, I know he can beat me. But then when we started getting busy, I realized that I can beat him. And I said, yo, he's not who I thought he was. It's because I minimized myself and I enhanced somebody else. Do you hear that? A lot of times we minimize ourselves and we enhance others because of the fact that you believe that someone is somewhere they're not. Damn. I claim victory. I claim everything that I feel like I deserve, right? When a person wants a small home and you want a big home and they tell you, why you want a big home? Because I want a big home. Why are you worried about what I want? Because it's my life. The other day I posted something on social media and the guy started questioning me about what I posted. I said, when you signed up for social media, you were allowed to post what you want, right? He said, yeah. I said, so why am I not allowed to post what I want on my page? If it don't apply, let it fly. You don't have to be on my page. You can keep going. He got mad. He was like, that's crazy. I said, it's not crazy. It's only crazy because of the fact that you want to control my page. And that's the weird part. When you're scrolling and you see something you don't like, just keep it pushing. Keep it pushing. It says a lot that something hits your spirit so deep that you feel the need to go respond on a post to an absolute stranger who don't give a damn, won't lose no sleep over you, and they not even worried about you. That man got 6,000 comments, and you like, yo, big bro, you corny. I don't think big bro corny. I think you corny because you worried about big bro. That's the reality. But you gotta claim victory, guys. Like, you gotta start allowing yourself to go into spaces that enhance your mentality, that inspires growth. When you're inspired, you'll realize that there is nothing you can't do when you're around anyone and everyone that's doing great. It is easier to feel successful around losers. It is easier to feel like a winner when you're around people who aren't doing anything. It is easier to look good in a room full of people that have nothing. And that's the victory. The victories are the small battles, right? Sometimes the issue is we don't give ourselves enough flowers. You meet people every day, right? When they're going through something, they don't give themselves the flowers on their journey to success. While you're on your journey to achieving, you have to be comfortable and celebrate your little battles. Because in order for you to win the war, you have to win the small battles first. It's the small battles that's gonna stop you. It's the small battles that's gonna like block you. Right? The small battle is, you know what? Rather than drinking soda, I'm gonna stop drinking soda. That's a small battle, right? You know what? Rather than waste my money, I'm gonna start saving. That's a battle. I'm gonna stop eating out. That's another battle. Somebody give me a battle right now that you're trying to inspire yourself to overachieve. I'll give you a battle I got right now where when things are not going the way I want, sometimes I give myself too much. I don't give myself no mercy. What I mean by that is every time things are not going the way I want, right, I always talk, like I'm my biggest critic and I'm extreme. One day somebody said to me, I told you, Tyler, somebody said, yo, why you don't ever push, no one pushes you the way you push us. And I said, because I'm 10 times harder on myself than I am on you. And I said, that's what you won't see. I have to keep inspiring myself. And she said, I never thought about that. And I said, yes, I have to keep myself adamant because I lead by example. I don't lead by vocals talk. I lead by action. So if I'm gonna tell you to be great, it's because I'm inspiring myself to be great. If I tell you to work hard, I'm gonna work hard with you. I'm not the person that's gonna leave you on the battlefield alone. I'm gonna stand on the front line with you and we're gonna go to war together. So while we're trying to beat this anxiety, this depression, this stress, right, the generational traumas, the generational curse, while we're trying to beat them and they're standing in front of us, right, we got to fight together. The one thing people don't know is I remember when I was younger and as I was starting to grow, I got jumped so many times by so many different emotions that I thought something was wrong with me. I'll be depressed inside at the same time, right? I'll be aggravated, happy, and then mad within 3 seconds. And I'm like, something is wrong with me. But then I started realizing it wasn't something wrong with me. It was because I wasn't fixing myself. I was the growing pains of success. I had to realize that I had to work on myself. There were things I would ignore because when you ignore problems, what happens is it starts off as a small hum. And over time it gets louder. And over time it gets louder. Before you know, you got a full-fledged hum in your ear telling you things that you want to hear or you don't want to hear. Sometimes the noise that you're ignoring is the noise that you need to listen to. There are people right now that become disobedient to hearing anything, therefore giving themselves a disability. We give ourselves disabilities. And how do you say we do that? Because you don't want to hear what you need to hear, nor do you want to see what you need to see, so therefore giving yourself a disability. I'm guilty as charged. I used to give myself disabilities because I would give myself excuses. My behavior became the catalyst for my excuse. Everything I did wrong, there was an excuse attached to it. It was attached. My excuse, my behavior were attached at the hip like Siamese twins. And the sad part is what should be between my excuse and my behavior is something called accountability. I was never accountable. And the sad part about not being accountable is the fact that you'll never elevate. Elevation requires separation. A lot of people are uncomfortable being separated. We get anxiety from being around what we're comfortable to. We get anxiety to being around what we're comfortable. So when you remove that person that's comfortable being around someone or somebody or people, they get anxiety, right? They get discomfort. And that's an issue that I suffered from. I had a lot of discomfort when you didn't put me in a room full of people that I felt like I can measure up to them. I didn't want to squint at the light when someone walked in a room brighter than me. I would rather go into the room where everyone was dim. Let me say that again. I didn't want to learn how to squint and adjust my eyes to someone that was brighter than me. What I would do is go around people who were dimmer than me, therefore only staying around people that were dimmer than me, only staying dim. I never became bright. But then when I started noticing, after I became so superior to a room, I realized like this room is no longer for me. They say if you're the smartest in the room, it's time to remove yourself from that room. And I ask somebody right now on live, are you comfortable removing yourself from rooms? Are you comfortable with doing things that make you feel very uncomfortable? I think comfort is the greatest thing that could either A, make or break you. Some people are comfortable doing new things. Some people are comfortable doing the same old thing. Same mentality, but two different perspectives. Some people are comfortable doing the same old thing. Some people are comfortable doing something extremely new. But I had to learn how to be comfortable with doing something extremely new because that requires growth. That requires discipline. That requires submission. When you hear the term submission, everyone take that term submission as a negative thing. Submission only means the willingness to allow someone to lead. And everyone that is a great teacher has always been a great student. Everyone that's a great leader was always a great follower. Because a great leader always finds someone greater than them to follow. Because you mirror it. If I'm going to play sports, I'm going to follow someone who's actually done great things and mirror what they've done, therefore elevating myself in exactly the same manner as them. Because I'm behaving to the magnitude of what they're behaving. I'm following the formula because success leaves trails that only fools won't follow. Success will leave a trail that only a fool won't follow. A lot of people think they're going to redefy gravity and they're going to be able to change the everything. They want everything to play in their favor. I'm going to redefine gravity because I realize that I am so smart that I can make things go the way I want. I can misbehave and still win. I had a conversation with a guy, I think Friday, in my shop. And we were having a conversation and he tells me that I said, an unruly mind could never win. And he said, what do you mean by that? I said, listen to the term unruly. I meet people who I come across in my journeys who smoke a lot. They smoke so much marijuana and they think that they're going to be able to be the anomaly, meaning I'm gonna get high as much as I would like, but I'm gonna still be super successful. But if you look at the word successful, there's a word that will always be attached to success, and that's sacrifice. If a person is not willing to sacrifice, right, they will never be successful. Maintaining struggle and sustaining struggle is not winning. Let's establish that off the rip. Maintaining struggle and sustaining struggle is not winning. Going every week to get the same amount of money, to pay your bills, to sacrifice, to struggle over and over and over, that's not. Where you worried every single week that if a dollar comes short, you're gonna be in a bad position. You worried that if the economy inflates a little bit more, you're struggling. That's because we don't believe in ourselves to the magnitude of what we can. We utilize Netflix rather than go back to school. Right? We're on Netflix, but we're not willing to go back to school. We'll watch a movie someone created, but we won't go create the person that we want to be. We'll watch a movie that someone created, but we won't create the person that we want to be. The best thing you can do is inspire yourself to become greater. The best thing you could do is sit in a room by yourself, have a long conversation with yourself, and talk to yourself and tell yourself, why am I so unruly? Why am I so undisciplined? Why do I not want to commit myself to doing anything that's going to make me better? Why am I consistently saying the same thing but expecting better results? Why do I lie to myself? Why do I tell myself what I want to hear when I know this is not true, but yet instead I'm going to make it true because the mind can believe what you keep telling it. The mouth says it, the ears hear it, the mind believes it. Let me say it again. The mouth says it, The ears hear it, the mind believes it. The more you keep telling yourself madness, the more your mind believes the madness. So if you keep telling yourself that this is the analogy of success and this is going to be the trail, you're going to keep going down the trail. They're going down a trail that has no end. It has no results. And so just wandering. You have to game plan, strategize to elevate, to grow. Someone calling right now, 516-253-1150, 516-253-1150. I'm asking everybody on my live today, what do you claim victory over? What do you claim victory over? I claim victory over sometimes, and I'm gonna keep it real with you, and I'm gonna go into a little logic. I used to fight depression, and I didn't understand what depression was, because I do come from a community where they believe that trauma, depression, anxiety is all escapes of saying or making an excuse. These are things that I had to learn were real. Anytime I would tell somebody like, yo, she may be depressed, she ain't depressed, she just want to eat everything. I'm like, depression, eating is a form of depression, especially overeating. That's a form of depression, you can see it, right? Shopping could be a form of depression, right? Cheating could be a form of depression. It sounds crazy, but in reality, it can be. Because in most cases, you create coping mechanisms on how to cope with it. And the way you cope is the way you're gonna continue to go to. So whatever becomes your coping mechanism, that's what you're gonna enhance. So for instance, I know people that got money and they still steal. Ask yourself why. Because that's their ways, that's their behavior. A lot of us have very, very unruly ways. Very unruly ways, right? So I'm asking you, Tyler, what are you right now? I'm asking you this question. What are you claiming victory over right now?
One thing I'm claiming victory over is self-doubt. You know, just in my accepting my journey and not doubting myself anymore and second guessing, and just, you know, if my intuition is telling me to do this, create this, do that, just go with it and believe in myself. So just claiming victory on self-doubt, because self-doubt could hold you back, and it could dim your light, you know?
You know what it is? When you're sitting there and you're having that conversation, right? Dre, you're talking to yourself. You got the good shoulder, you got the bad shoulder, good and evil. Whatever you give energy to, the evil energy becomes stronger. Just as well as the positive energy, it can become stronger. But if you keep giving energy to the negative, are you going around people who are second guessing you? Remember I said earlier, conceited, cocky, arrogant, and confidence, they all straddle the fence. But it all depends on your level of confidence. That will project my level of confidence. If you overly confident, then if I'm overly confident, our conversation is gonna sound very confident. But if a confident person has a conversation with someone who's not confident, no matter what you say, you're gonna always sound very arrogant.
And I think that's what's been claiming victory over, just being in those spaces with people where when you speak and you talk how you talk, it kind of offends them. So it makes you feel like maybe I'm not really doing anything, but in reality you are. But you just because the people you're around, you could second guess yourself, doubt yourself, and even tell yourself maybe what I'm doing is not meant to be, but it could be. It's just you're not around the right people.
Listen, but watch this. I want you to hear this good. When you're young, you're taught a level of let me say the term. You have like a hate towards education, and I'm gonna tell you why. Especially when you come from a less fortunate environment. When you come from a less fortunate environment, you rebel against education because it makes you feel less than. So a lot of times in negative environments, a lot of the people that are very educated, they're usually bullied and tossed and teased. And they're ostracized and they looked at as the outliers, right? But in reality, that person is the person that should be the leader. But it's in our culture where it's become in our DNA where a lot of people believe that if a person is too smart, that means by you challenging me, you're disrespecting me. And I think that people need to get comfortable with people challenging you so therefore you can elevate. Because a healthy debate is positive because a man or a woman, and we still should exercise logic. If it makes sense, it makes sense. And then I'll do my research and see why this person thinks the way they think. Because perspective is only your way of thinking. And again, a lot of people, I feel like they become rebels at a younger age to people that are very smart and intelligent. I remember sitting in classrooms and we used to tease the person that raised their hand a lot, to the point where people stopped raising their hand. I was the kid that knew all the answers, but I was scared to raise my hand because of the fact that I didn't want to seem too intelligent. And when I would raise my hand or I would know the answer, I felt like my friends who didn't know the answer would make me feel uncomfortable for knowing the answer. But in reality, if you look at that perspective alone, that's a horrible perspective, right? Yeah.
I mean, you look at it, people, they celebrate the person coming home from jail, but not college. So.
Which is crazy when you really look at it. But again, I said that last time. I think that's why people go back. I think people go back and forth to jail because they constantly celebrate it. They're awarded and cheered on for going through a very traumatic experience, but in reality, an experience that you shouldn't have to go through to be considerably a man. If you got to go through incarceration to be considerably a man, that means your culture is bad, right? Everyone don't have to go through the worst of the worst to become the greatest of the greats. In order to become great, sometimes you have to learn how to navigate around potholes to show that you're a great driver. The great person that's driving life and is driving in life is the person that can navigate around potholes. A person don't have to hit 1,000 potholes to tell you that they're a great driver. If you could avoid certain circumstances, that actually show how great of a driver you are. I genuinely believe that the person that has a lot of criminal history, they're just bad criminals, but they think that they're great criminals because of the fact that they continue to want to do criminal activity. But in reality, the greatest criminal is the one who never gets caught. So the people that keep getting caught, maybe you should try a different profession. Yeah, tell them.
And dodging the potholes is learning from others. You know,
that's exactly
learning
what
from
it
others'
is.
Mistakes.
Listen, when you were younger, we heard who don't hear will feel. I think a lot of people are feeling because they don't want to hear. They don't want to learn. Every time you have these conversations, you realize that you bring out insecurity in people, especially when it goes against their innate behaviors, their thoughts, their beliefs. Because humans are naturally creatures of habit. And once we indoctrinate our mind into certain habits, then we get conditioned to our habits. See, the thing about that is you can become conditioned to anything, right? Think about that narrative. I genuinely believe that Cassie was a young girl that did meet young, and certain behaviors that he was in, he conditioned her into those behaviors, right? I'm going to be fair and honest. And I think that anyone can be conditioned based on behaviors, especially when your mind isn't fully developed, right? I think a person, if I don't know any better about money and everyone around me has a financial spending condition, I'm more prone to be financially spending than I am going to be financially saving. But if you took me and put me in an environment where more people are conditioned to save, saving will be such an urgency for me that I will feel very uncomfortable when I'm not saving. See, that's the issue that we learn. Everything you see is a learned behavior, and we're creatures of habit. So you can become conditioned to anything you see. Product of your environment, certain thing is learned behavior. That you can generationally inherit hopelessness. There are a lot of people that anytime you talk about anything you want to do, they automatically go to the negative. That's crazy when a person has that mentality. I watched a video of a 16-year-old boy, and he was talking about how he don't want to leave the hood because he said that it's Don Julio, Chinese food, chopped cheese on the same block. And then he was saying how he don't have to leave. But look at that narrative. He had to be about 12, 13 years old. For a 12, 13-year-old, in most cases, they have the aspirations of a rock star. They feel like they could be anybody. But as they get older, they lose that inspiration, right? Or belief that they can be anybody, right? But a 13-year-old to have that level of hopelessness, that's clearly inherited. I would love to meet that kid's parents, and you'll see that why he thinks the way he thinks, right? A lot of times we inherit certain behavior patterns. There's a rebellious spirit that you can take on. I meet people who are born with a rebellious spirit, meaning anything and everything you say, if it goes against their beliefs, they don't want to hear it. And I can psychologically talk to you at a level of consciousness, but yet and still you're so insecure that you don't even want to hear it because it goes against your innate behaviors. Again, it makes me feel uncomfortable. And at times, I tell people all the time, comfort is the reason why you're not getting victory. because your victory is what you mastered. It's the video game that you can close your eyes and play the video game on that board because you mastered that board. But again, when you go play the new video game, you'll learn that in life, you have to learn how to beat the new levels. But when you're going to a new level, you bring in a level of uncomfortableness because you're not sure. You ever drove somewhere far, right? And it felt like it took forever, but it takes mad fast to come back? Because that's the anxiety of getting there. That's the anxiety of getting there. Let me say that again. You ever drove somewhere far and it felt like it takes so long to get there that you're like, I can't wait to get there. But then when you finally get there, and then when you drive back, you feel like you get back fast. Because reality is now you know where you're going. That's how comfort works. The more you know where you're going, the more you're gonna be comfortable, and it's feel like it's taking so long. That's why a lot of people say it takes so long to get to success, because they're going to a level they've never been to. And when you're going somewhere you don't know, it will always feels like it takes longer to get there. And that's what people need to get comfortable with, taking the long route to get there, because it's the same distance as coming back. And that's what we need to learn as a culture. Our people have made great sacrifices for us to have great opportunities. But a lot of people still blame other people for their poor decisions and not themselves, right? I made sacrifices, and I had to learn that, and I'm gonna say this on record, somebody gonna get mad, but I don't give a damn. Damn! A lot of people say, and I'm gonna say this, and I want you guys to agree or disagree with me, they always blame the white man for their behaviors. And I'm gonna be honest with you, no one is stopping you from opening a book and read. No one is stopping you from advancing yourself. No one is stopping you from making greater sacrifices to get to a better position. The one thing I always acknowledge, people say things like this, and I hate when they say this. My mom never taught me, but I love to say this. Your mama never taught you how to have sex, but you figured it out. Because I doubt somebody's mama taught them how to have sex. But yet still, you figured it out. So the logic is we can figure out what we want to figure out, right? My mother never taught me how to drive, but I figured it out. But again, if you realize that us as humans, we can learn what we choose to learn. We can become what we want to become. Because in order to fit in the room of the successful, you have to learn the language. A lot of people are inferior to greater language. They're inferior to greater conversations. And while I say inferior, is because you're not comfortable enough to stay in the room of the successful until you learn the conversation, until you learn the vernacular, until you learn how they speak, how they talk, how they act, how they behave. Success is a behavior that everyone that is successful have the same behaviors. If you go around people that have a certain mentality, you'll realize that they all have the certain mentality, even if they come from a different ethnicity. You heard that? If you take a white man who is successful, and you take a black man that is successful, you take an Asian man that is successful, let's even go further, you take a white Caucasian woman, you take a black woman, you take a Asian woman, and you sit them in a room and they don't know each other, and all of them are successful, you'll realize that they all speak the same language. They speak the same language, even if they have a different native tongue. Even if they have a different native tongue, you'll realize that they all speak the same language. 1 is, I'm a sacrifice. 2 is, I'm gonna invest. 3 is, I'm responsible with my money. 4 is, I'm financially responsible. 5 is, I'm literate. They're financially literate. 6 is, they're disciplined. This is the language of the successful. It's not a color. Last time I checked, money is green. And anybody can get themselves to that position of having it if they're willing to do what it takes, right? And that's what we had to learn. We had to learn the behavior patterns. The same way when I wanted to be the worst of the worst on the streets, I learned how to be the worst of the worst on the streets. It's a learned behavior. Because as you're learning how to be worse, right, you're learning and you're teaching yourself. Because in 9 out of 10 times, we're gonna give ourselves an excuse to our own behavior. I think the sad part is the person that rolls the red carpet out to their excuses and they walk into a red carpet event with their excuse and don't see that they look crazy on the red carpet. Look what I just said to you. You rolled out the red carpet, right, to an event with your excuses, and you walk right into the event with your excuses, and you sit front row seat with your excuses, and guess what's playing on the theater? The lack of accountability. That's what's on the theater, the lack of accountability. We walk right into the event with our excuses and we don't see that we got our excuses with us. Because you know why? Most people go around people that compliment their excuses. People that say the same thing. I got a homeboy right now, and this is crazy. I'm gonna get into this. Let me tell the truth. Years ago, I had a homeboy, and this is years ago, that every time I cheated, he would justify my cheating. She gotta respect you. I'm like, bro, let's be real. Stepping outside your relationship is a decision that you're making, whether male or female, and you're gonna justify your behavior. Even though I'm gonna be honest, it's not the same. Men don't usually, and a lot of times men don't step out because of the fact that they have feelings for the person. They step out because in most cases they just thirst buckets, right? I'm just being honest. I'm not giving it as an excuse, but I'm just being fair and honest. But in the same breath, it's still a choice. Regardless of whatever, you can have 1,000 drug valves in your neighborhood. It's still a choice that if you choose to pick it up and sell it. Everything has to be, you have to be accountable for anything you choose. Someone calling right now, 516-253-1150. 516-253-1150. What you got, Tyler? Anything? I'm claiming victory over everything this year. And you know why? You know why I'm claiming victory? It's because I realize that no one is gonna want more for me than me. Right? No one's gonna see my potential more than I can see my own potential. Because I'm gonna tell you something, it's weird when others see your potential, but you can't see your own. And if others can see your potential and you can't see your own potential, your potential will never surface. It will never manifestate. It's sad that kid that's in the projects right now that's like, yo, I'm gonna be a celebrity, I'm gonna be this, I'm gonna be that. And that kid inspires himself to get all the way through. There's a video I seen a while back. It was Michael B. Jordan and a girl that used to tease him in high school about acting. And Michael B. Jordan went on and became this great actor, right? I actually love his movies. Creed 3 is one of my favorite movies. And the storyline behind it is very relatable to my life, right? But she didn't see what he saw in himself. And a lot of times when people don't see what you see in yourself, they're gonna resent you for seeing things you see in yourself. Because I genuinely don't believe that there's a such thing as ugly. I think a person's behaviors can be ugly. But if I'm not attracted to a person, don't mean they're ugly. It just means I'm not attracted to them. If a person's not attracted to me, don't mean I'm ugly. It just means they're not attracted to me. I think ugly is a behavior, how you act. If I steal, that's ugly. If I hurt somebody, I think that's ugly. If I do things that goes against nature, that's ugly, right? That's how I feel. You don't take care of your children, that's an ugly behavior, right? But I don't think that a person based on presentation, because we're all made in God's likeness. So how could anything be ugly? That means therefore we're calling God ugly because we're made in his likeness, right? Go ahead, Tyler.
I saw a video, Welby, he came to your shop and he basically showed us the power of friendship. Can you get into that?
So long story short, Welby's a good friend of mine. And one thing we talk about all the time, and I want everybody in my life to hear this, don't go around nobody that you can't learn from, you can't grow from, and you can't borrow from. And the reason why I say that is because some people are like, I'll never have to borrow. That means you don't plan on having any storms. Life has ups and downs and roller coasters that you cannot prepare for, and it can still happen to anybody. No one is exempt from life. So Welby called me. No, I'm lying. Welby didn't even call me. I'm in the shop. I'm chilling, right? And he walks in the shop. Yo, Q, do me a favor. He asked for a large sum of money, about $50,000. He said, if I need to borrow $50,000, would you do it? I said, of course. And he said, and I'll give you 10% on your money within a week. I said, no problem. That's even better. But the reason why I'm willing to do that for Welby is because the relationship that me and Welby have built, that he stands on his word, he's about his what he say. So what I'm trying to say is if you can't go around people who can help you, then you're around people who are clearly hurting you. But when you say help, you got to remember there's a two-way street. When you realize that traffic goes both ways. So if I'm helping you, you got to help me. And everything is not monetary. That means everything is not given in finance. You could have gave me knowledge. You could have poured into me when my tank was empty. You could have said things that made me get back inspired. That's also helping. Sometimes we only look at money as the catalyst for success. There are a lot of people right now who will never have the finances, but they'll have the level of maturity that will ultimately open up doors for them. I know some people who are not millionaires, but they can open up their phone and their network in their phone is multi-millionaires. That says a lot about their character. When you open your phone and you start scrolling through your contacts and you look at the people you call friend, you'll see that's why you're in your positioning. Because a lot of times we hold on to people that made us feel comfortable. As I said before, you can only grow past where you're willing to go as far as your comfort. If you're willing to make yourself uncomfortable again, therefore you will grow again. But you won't grow staying in the same comfort. That's the reason why most fail. Because we make an excuse. Look at life like this. Imagine being late for work all the time, right? Your colleague is always late for work, and then the boss always bothers you, and you only have conversations with your colleague about being late. Y'all both always late. So you know what you're gonna say? Yo, he always talking crazy. Yo, she always bothering us. But in reality, that person is making you worse because they're accommodating your behavior. And once they accommodate your behavior, 9 out of 10 times your behavior patterns get worse. Think about it, Tyler. Your person that you meet, your first person at work every day that you talk to, y'all both always late. And every time y'all always late, y'all always give each other an excuse for being late. And then when the bosses jump on y'all, y'all talk crazy about the bosses, but y'all don't talk crazy to each other about each other. Y'all don't hold each other accountable. This is why that person will continue to have the same problems for the rest of their life. A lot of people don't say, again, we're creatures of habit. You can't go around people that's gonna give you an excuse for your behavior, right? I remember one time a guy said to me, I don't resent my first child. I had him very young. I had my first kid when I was 17, 18. And you know what he said to me? He said, do you resent yourself? I said, I don't resent my kids. He said, but let's not act like that's a good thing. Because you don't want the next generation to believe that that's a good thing. You're not resenting him, you're not talking bad about it, but we gotta break this mentality. We're having a child you shouldn't be a child having a child when you're still a child and you have childlike pockets. You shouldn't be having a child. And reality is I had childlike pockets and was having a kid. And respectfully to myself, I was willing to do what I had to do to fix the situation, but a child shouldn't be in a position as a man, they should be walked into manhood and not thrown into manhood. A woman should be walked into womanhood and not thrown into womanhood. In most cases, if you throw a woman into womanhood, she's gonna fail. In most cases, if you throw a man into manhood, he'll fail. That's why they make different sizes of pools, right? When you're still intermediate, you'll be in a smaller, lower levels of pool. So therefore, if you feel like you're about to drown, you can stand up. But as you get more comfortable in the pool that you're in, you go further and further in, right? To the point where it might cover your neck. And eventually it covers your mouth. To the point where it can cover your head. But now you learn how to navigate those oceans because you stayed in the smaller bottles of water, the smaller bodies of water. You don't throw somebody in the bigger bodies of water and expect them to be Aquaman or Aquawoman. You have to learn. And that's what I think a lot of people are failing because they genuinely believe that they should just jump head first into the biggest body of ocean of water and lose. No, baby steps, celebrating your small victories, right? Being proud of the fact that today you got up 20 minutes earlier than you ever got up. Round of applause for anybody that's gonna do something tomorrow that they haven't challenged. They say, I don't care if it's 1 minute earlier than you ever. Say you get up at 6 o'clock every morning, you get up at 5:59 tomorrow. Round of applause. And the reason why I'm giving you a round of applause is because you gotta give yourself baby steps. We gotta give ourselves room for growth. No one goes from, what Drake said, I go from 0 to 100 real quick. Most people ain't going to no 0 to no 100 real quick. The only way they go from 0 to 100 real quick, if their circumstances really was that bad that they had absolutely no choice. But again, if you give yourself a small choice, then you start making better decisions. You start learning. You start elevating. You start challenging yourself. You start compromising, or you start giving yourself more reasoning to win and less reasoning to accept your failure. I think a lot of us, again, we accommodate our failures. We compliment them. You tell your failures, you look beautiful. You're handsome. But and the sad part is you don't tell your efforts that. Why you don't tell your efforts you're handsome, you're beautiful, you're trying? You know, why you don't give your efforts that same accommodation? But you always talk bad about your failures. Here's your failures. Oh my God, I knew you was gonna fail. I knew you wasn't gonna make it. I knew you wasn't gonna, that's how we talk to ourselves. But when we give effort and we try something, why do you don't say, yo, I'm proud of you that you tried something that you never tried before? You coming out of your little box. There's a homeboy I got one time, right? We used to say to him all the time, like, bro, just come out with us. I was so proud of him that he came to an event with us because he's not that type of person. And I'm like, bro, the fact that you're willing to do that, I'm very proud of you because I know it takes a lot to make you willing to do this. Because, again, we get comfortable. And that's what an issue with comfort. It breeds content. It breeds stagnation. It breeds staying at the same level forever. Sustaining life is not winning. Let's call that what it is. Sustaining failure is not winning. Sustaining poverty is not winning. We got to learn how to recondition our minds to understand that we're worthy of more. When I say things, I claim victory, it's because I feel like I'm worthy of more. I say I claim victory because I know I'm deserving of more. Because the Bible I worship, or the God I worship rather, he doesn't talk in small volumes. He talks in abundance. He talks in abundance. The reason why I love to pour into others' cups because I don't believe that God's going to stop pouring into my cup because I'm pouring into somebody else's cup. I think if he's pouring into my cup, I'm going to let my cup run over onto someone else's cup. I'm not going to withhold information and hoard because I want to be the king of the room. And there's people like that. They want to hoard information and hoard lifestyle because they want to be the king of the room. They're gatekeepers. They don't want to see you come into the room, right? Remember the Django who that on that there? The black man seeing another black man successful. The black woman seeing a black woman with a better bag than her. But a lot of times we got to look like, you may have more material things than me, but the question is, are you happier than me? And that's when the conversation shifts. You may have a better car than me. You may have a better lifestyle than me. But I'm going to ask you, are you happier than me? You may have a bigger degree than me. You may speak higher educated than me. But are you happier than me? Now we changing the narrative, right? A lot of times we don't want to move the goalpost. Sometimes moving the goalpost is good. When you give yourself more room for failure. Because a lot of times we don't fail backwards, we fail forward. And learning how to fail forward, right? I claim victory. I'm no longer gonna accept mediocre lifestyles and say that this is what life is. This is not what life is. That's what you accepted. I had a young man the other day, he gave me his whole vision board. And the vision board was amazing, everything he told me, or what he want. And then I asked him what he want to do for a living. And I said, it sounds like you're going to need 2 incomes. He said, what do you mean by that? He said, I feel like I can do it myself. I said, that's cool. But in most cases, you may not get to that financial level. And there's nothing wrong with that. Because right now, the world we live in is designed for multiple streams of income in order to level up fast, right? And I hate when everyone thinks that they're going to own a business. There are a lot of people who are made to own businesses. Let's establish that. The victory in life is when you learn yourself. I think some people need to learn themselves. Listen, every movie has multiple roles, and you got to accept what is your role. Because every role in a movie, for the movie to be good, serves a purpose. Think about it. You're watching a movie without the extras, with the city full. If they trying to make the city look full and there's no extras, the movie looks empty. So everybody serves a purpose, but you got to understand that everyone cannot be the main character. But again, you can be great in your movie and master your role in the movie. Because everyone can't be a billionaire. Everyone is not going to be a millionaire. But everyone can be the best version of themselves. Everyone can be successful because success is relative. Everyone can be financially stable because that's relative, right? And a lot of times when you look at your life, you got to look at the fact that you were the person that moved your family into a greater positioning from your starting point. If you went from A, right, to C, right, and then the next generation went from C to G, and the next generation went G and onward, right? All you did was just change your family's trajectory now. Now your family going to have a bigger, broader lens on what they could achieve. Because once you see it, then you believe that it's possible. A lot of people got to go around people that believe in them, right? And that's what we need to learn. I've learned that sometimes in life, even when I'm going through my worst moments, is because it's teaching me how to be ready for my greatest moments. Let me say that again. I learned when I'm going through my worst moments, it's teaching me and preparing me to go through my greatest moments. I've been going through something this week, and I learned how to accept what it is. As I said earlier, before anybody was on my live, My barbershop, I've had it for 1,000 years. It caught fire yesterday. And a part of me was a little disappointed, right? But I'm not disappointed anymore because I'm ready for the next chapter. The barbershop will be reopened. That barbershop is going to be there forever. That is a staple of the community. But the one thing I realize is it's moving me to see a better version of myself. Because one thing I learned is anytime I put someone in position to lead me, I always fail. Because you know why? Let me say this. I want you to hear this good, Tyler. Every time I put someone in position to lead me, Dre, I failed. And the reason why I failed, because I always had the greatest leader already leading me. Let me say that again. Anytime I failed is when I choose to let somebody lead me, because I already have the greatest leader leading me. And one thing you have to understand, our God said that he's a selfish God. So while I'm allowing someone to lead me, I'm not following his steps. And therefore, he's going to make sure it don't work because he want to humbly show you that I run the show. And a lot of times I had to learn that God runs the show because I allow people to lead me. In reality, I already had a leader. And he poured in me to be a leader. Everyone is a leader of their journey. Everyone determines their own success and their victories. Everyone can change their positioning for the better or for the worse. You could do things to yourself that could diabolically put you in bad positions, or you could do things that could put you in a great position. Sometimes we gotta look in that mirror and have that nasty conversation that we've been avoiding for years and tell ourselves that the excuses are why we're failing. The reasoning for our lives to not get to the levels that we want is because of our excuses. We justify our behavior. We accommodate our behavior. We compliment our excuses. We tell ourselves everything we want to hear. Like I said, no matter what I go through in life, I'm going to hold my head up high and I'm going to smile because I've always been through worse. But I do believe that God gives his toughest battles to his strongest warriors. And me being a strong warrior, I had to accept that my battle was not going to be easy. And today I'm claiming victory over anything that's hindered me. I'm claiming victory over anybody that I felt like I had to prove myself to. I'm claiming victory over any spirit that the devil is sending to try to attack me. I'm claiming victory. I'm claiming victory on any past traumas because I'm not going to hold on to them and allow that to be the catalyst to where I'm not going to be successful. I'm claiming victory on any past poor relationship. I'm claiming victory. I'm not going to let myself be held in mental bondage behind a situation that I feel like I've outgrown. I'm claiming victory. I'm claiming my greater version of myself. And I'm willing to walk into the greatest light. Whether I have to squint, but I'm going to stay walking towards that light until my eyes adjust to the brightness of that light. I'm no longer going to say, let me just close my eyes and walk, because sometimes I feel like the blind is leading the blind, and a lot of people need to open their eyes so they can really see, right? The blind is leading the blind. I'm opening my eyes, and I'm going to walk towards the light, and I'm going to be exactly what God put me on earth to be. I'm going to fulfill my purpose, because a lot of y'all stop writing chapters in your book once you got to a certain chapter in your book. Your book has a lot of blank pages that you still have to fill into the end of your days. The story isn't over. It's time for us to get re-inspired and allow ourselves to become the greatest version of ourselves. No more accepting failure. No more making excuses. Because I'm going to tell you something. Even if you don't, they say if you don't land on the moon, you'll fall amongst the stars. So shoot for the moon, but if you fail, at least you land amongst the stars. You don't have to be the billionaire and the millionaire, but you could be the person that went back and got that degree. You could be that person that did horrible in life, and now look at you. Because I love when God cleans things up. You don't look the same when you start cleaning things up. Sometimes when I tell people I was a gangster, they look at me like I'm crazy, because he cleans it up. He makes you look better. I call it that new car smell, right? You ever gotten a new car and it smell good? That's what happens with God. He gives you that new car smell. And today I'm claiming that new car smell. I'm not gonna allow myself to go down the roads that I've went down before. I'm not gonna make the excuses on my poor behavior. I'm not gonna justify hanging around people that don't add no value to me. And when I'm around people, I'm gonna make sure I add value to them. That's what I'm claiming today. For those on my live today, if you claim victory, I wanna see, let me see you claim victory. Right, victory. Some on my live claim that victory. I see one victory. I see two victories. I see three victories. I see four. I see four victories. Listen, I see 5 victories. I see 6 victories. Listen, I get it. You were exposed to things you shouldn't have been exposed to as a child. But sometimes your parents are exposed to things as a child they shouldn't have been exposed to. You were hurt by people that was hurt. You were not respected by people that didn't respect themselves. You got stolen from thieves that were thieves, they stole from themselves because they're stealing things that they can work hard to get. Sometimes when you're not going after the best version of yourself, you're stealing from yourself. You're stealing from yourself. So why are you not surprised that the thief is stealing from themselves when it's steal from you? We become conditioned. We become programmed. We gotta allow ourselves to heal. Forgive ourselves. And today I claim victory. Tyler, let's get victory. I claim victory over everything that I experienced. I claim victory because I'm taking back my life. Today is my day. No more excuses. Sometimes you gotta realize you just won't quit. It's the quitting that make us not realize that we have to constantly keep going. When most won't pursue, you have to chase it. See, that you don't realize that if your work don't surpass the potential, then your potential will remain a dream. And the fact of the matter is most people don't want to chase their dreams. It's the aspirations and the goals that we like to chase. You want more, but you're not willing to do more. See, it's the victory that we want, but we don't want to make the sacrifices to get there. When you don't make the sacrifices, nothing comes full circle. But you want more. That's a false reality. See, the conclusion of one's life is what you've created. When you're young, you look like your parents, but as you get older, you start looking like your life decisions. And most don't understand you look like your life's decisions based on a poor performance. The victory is what comes when you're resilient. It what comes when you sacrifices. It what comes when you're constantly chasing your dream. It's the victory that we want, but we scared to pursue. And by not pursuing one, we'll never become great. See, most of us stand in front of ourselves and block ourselves from getting to the next level. It takes a consistent person who's willing to sacrifice. If one won't sacrifice, one will never ever become great. It's you that gotta change your life. It's you who gotta do more. It's you who gotta be willing to look in the mirror and tell yourself, in order to be great, I gotta make the changes. It's you. It's not the world. But we want the world to feel our pain. Rather than complain, won't you make the world feel your pain? By chasing your better self and going after your goals. See, the goal will remain a goal unless you make your action surpass your goals. Chase your better being. Go after your dreams and sacrifice for the next steps. It's you. I claim victory. Don't let that go over your head.